Assalamualaikum everyone. This is me, Filza fahad, and today I'm going to reviewing on one of my favorite novels I have ever read. So yes, this is the novel Kidnap, which is written by Robert Louis Stevenson in 1752. The novel has all the elements of adventurous and the being betrayed and this is full of adventurous novel. So yes, let's begin with the story. Basically, Kidnap tells the story of David Balfour, a young man of the lowlands, the southern part of the Scotland. David Balfour's father, Alexander Balfour, has recently died, and his mother died sometime before. So he is now an orphan. Since he is now 17 years old, he has decided that it is time to go and seek to get his fortune. So before he leaves for the city of Edinburgh, he meets with his guardian, whose name was Mr. Campbell. So he reveals that David has an uncle who has named Ebenezer Balfour of Shaws. So David decided to go to Cramen where his uncle lived and meet his wealthy relatives. So David walks 2 days to Edinburgh and soon finds his way to Cramen. As he begins to ask about the House of Shaws, he finds it is an unpopular place. His uncle Ebenezer seems particularly ill regarded by the community, and it is in fact the only occupant of the house. Like there was no one lived in that house except for his Uncle Ebenezer. So nevertheless, David continues in the House of Shaws. Ebenezer gives him a cold welcome, and it seems that he was very interested in the death of David's father. Ebenezer treats David very badly, almost as if David is a thief in his house, but he wins some of David's respect by giving the lad nearly £40. But when Ebenezer nearly sends David to his death in the tower adjacent to the house, David demands to know why his uncle hates him, and if he does, why he wants him to stay at the House of Shaws. So yes, these were the questions that were coming in the mind of David. So after then, a cabin boy, Ransom, arrives at the House of Shaws. He has been sent by the Captain Hussein. Basically, he was a captain on the ship Covenant. So Covenant was the name of the ship. So a ship that deals with the sum of Ebenezer's financial ventures. So Hussein has requested to see the Ebenezer. So the old men decided to go to the port of Queen's Ferry with Ransom and David too. So David is interested in seeing the ships at the port, so he willingly goes along. At first, Hussein seems very pleasant. He warns David that Ebenezer means mischief towards him. So Hussein then asks to speak to David on the boat, and David agrees. So being interested in seeing more of the boat views, once he is on, however, the boat swiftly departs. And as he screams at the dock for the help, the sailors knock David unconscious. So he awakes in the dark storage deck of the Covenant. As he drifts in and out of the sleep, he quickly becomes ill, and he was unconscious at that time because he got ill. So and soon he is lingering near death. So the ship's mate, Reich, he was one of the captain in that ship. So he demands that the boy should be allowed to sleep in the healthier forecastle of the ship with the other sailors. So Hussein reluctantly agrees, and as David recovers, he becomes friends with Reich and a few of the other sailors too. So then Ransom is accidentally killed by Mr. Sean, and David becomes the new cabin boy in place of Ransom. So after a few days at this new job, the Covenant strikes and sinks an other boat. One man survives. A stranger Highland man dressed in the clothing of a French soldier. Like he was wearing a hat, he was wearing the velvet coats and half long shoes. The stranger tells the captain that he is carrying the rent money for his disfranchised chieftain. So the two men make an agreement that Hosison will drop the stranger off in Lenenoj. That was the name of the island where Alan had to go. So before the shipwreck, he is now on the ship Covenant. So, but no sooner is the captain gone for the roundhouse. So the officers' lounge where the visiting stranger is kept, that place is called as the roundhouse. So when David overhears the officers plotting to murder the stranger and take his belt, David tells this to the stranger and agrees to fight by his side. The stranger says his name is Alan Breck Stewart. Alan and David successfully defend the roundhouse from the sailors, Alan killing several men and even David taking two himself. Alan, impressed with David's courage, gives David a silver button as a reward. Basically, Alan gives David a silver button as his reward that he has killed so much sailors and he helped him. So the captain and Alan negotiate, and the captain agrees to drop Alan and David off near Lene Loach. On the way, the ship strikes the torrent rocks and goes down. So David escapes and finds himself on island. The island is separated from a larger main island only by a river. As the time passed by, as the days goes on, the David and Alan has covered the huge journey with lots of difficulties. They faced many difficulties, like they even tried to get murdered by the red fox. They were the enemies of the Alan, and so after facing many difficulties, David and Alan finally move on, and after some difficulties reach Quinn's Ferry once again. They cross over and David meets with his family's lawyer, Rankeler. Mr. Rankeler was his family's lawyer. So Mr. Rankeler told them, like Alan and David, the story of his father and Mr. Ebenezer. What was the story? The story was this, that when they were young, they loved the same lady. So it turns out that the Ebenezer and David's father has had a dispute over a woman. David's father married David's mother, obviously the lady that he had loved, and the Ebenezer had the state house of Shaws. So although he was not the elder brother, Ebenezer was not the elder brother, Alexander Balfour is the elder brother. So Rankeler says the agreement is not legally binding and that David is the true heir of the state. But David doesn't want the House of Shaws, just a pension from its yearly earnings. So to rectify the situation, David and Alan plays a trick on Ebenezer. Rankeler, David and Alan goes to the House of Shaws. Alan walks up to the door alone and pretends that he's from the bunch of Highlanders who found David alive shortly after the shipwreck on the Torrent Rocks. He asks for money to return to the boy, but Ebenezer refused to pay anything. Alan then says that they'll kill him unless Ebenezer pays to have him kept alive. Ebenezer doesn't want the boy dead, and as he haggles over how much he will pay, he admits that the plan had been for Hosison to sell the boy into the slavery in the Covenant, basically. At that point, David and Rankeler reveals themselves, having caught Ebenezer in the confession. Ebenezer and Rankeler then work out an agreement that David would get 2/3 of the yearly income of the House of Shaws. After that, in the end, David receives a note from Rankeler that will allow him to collect his money. David then speaks to Alan and arranges to send him money so that Alan can get passage to France, back to his country. The two men part and David wanders into town to claim his fortune. So that was in the whole novel. That was a summary basically of the whole novel. The novel is no doubt having all the elements of adventure. So I must recommend you all to read this novel. This is much fun, and having all the elements of adventure. So thank you so